welcome to Fantastic Beats. 3 people, 3 tracks, we swap them and we talk about them. I'm Lizzie Maris.
I'm Jack Chuter.
And our guest today is player of bass and fusser of Cats, of Working Man Noise Unit and Jackson, respectively. You've got to get that the right way around. Dom James. Hello, Dom.
Hello.
Hey, all right, so I'm going to kick us off this time. My track this time around is Romeo and Juliet by Dire Straits. So this is off their 1980 Making Movies album. And I went for this track this time because it honestly just makes me laugh. So the thing that I love most about this track is that it's stupidly transactional. It's basically like, it's just, the narrative is ridiculous. It's basically just the story, and very much the lyrics are like, and then he said, and then she said, and then she did this, and then he did this. Yeah. And I just think it's absolutely brilliant, and it makes me laugh, and the storytelling is really strong, and I was really like looking into it more because I've always just thought, oh, it's this really, it's based on Romeo and Juliet and the kind of unrequited love. But then I was actually looking it up, and Mark Knopfler, who is the singer and guitar player, it is actually based on a relationship he had where his ex said something to him like, oh yeah, I used to have a scene with him or something, and there's a famous line in the song where Juliet says that. So kind of looking back on it now, reflecting on it now, it all just might seem a bit jaded and bitter. But if we kind of put that to the side, I just think it's a really, really lovely story. And one of my favourite lines in it is he goes, when you going to... So this is Romeo talking to Juliet, in theory. He says, when are you going to realise it was just that the time was wrong? And I remember growing up with that song, and especially when I was a little bit more sort of like teenage, I just remember thinking that's such a brilliant universal line, because we've definitely all had relationships or moments in our life where it was just that the time was wrong. And I just sort of sing along to that like some sort of like guy in his truck, like, yeah, when are you going to realise? I just have a lot of love for this song. I think it's really beautifully constructed. I think it's funny. And I think it's just a very universal kind of rock song about love, which you probably won't find me monologuing about a lot on here. But it's just got its quirks. Like there's, I think in the second to last verse or something, he says about Romeo sort of standing in the shadows, and he sort of goes, finds a convenient street light, and the word convenient doesn't quite fit, and it's just charming. It's
convenient.
Just charming. Yeah, it is. It shouldn't really be there. So that's Romeo and Juliet by Dire Straits, which I thoroughly recommend. Dom, do you thoroughly recommend it?
I'm gonna be honest. My Dire Straits knowledge is shamefully, some would even say criminally limited. I only heard Sultan to Swing for the first time 2 years ago, perhaps.
Oh wow!
So this isn't necessarily something I'd seek out myself.
No, I mean not many people would. It's fine.
But yeah, I mean it. I feel like it did what it intended to do. I'm trying my hardest to be nice to Dire Straits here.
You don't have to be. It's absolutely fine.
I feel bad because when I saw that it was Fantastic Beats, I'd mainly been listening to the drums.
Right.
Interesting.
That's our fault.
So I hadn't really thought about anything beyond the drums on either of these songs.
What do you think of the drums?
Right, well, so I was thinking of the drums. It's the perfect beat for the song, because it must have been quite hard, picture the scene. Mark Knopfler comes into practice. You're used to playing, Sultan to Swing, quite driving rhythms. And then, Mark comes in one day and he's like, I've got this, it's a bit different. And you're sat behind a drum kit and he's playing this and you're thinking, well, what am I going to do? and I feel like if we're from a beats point of view, I feel like it's pretty much the best it could have been. There are pieces of flair where it needed flair, but it didn't shine when it wasn't meant to.
That's nice, because as I've said, the lyrics are doing so much work, so actually that's fine.
Oh dear.
I really enjoy that we've got a sort of drums focus episode. I think that's an accident, but I'm really happy about it. So
yeah. Well, I mean, let me mention a couple of other bits of it then, because I actually thought that this is not my kind of song. Like, it comes on strong, doesn't it? It's got its message, and that's all it really wants to deliver. But actually, what I did quite like about it were the facts that it kind of swells. It gets all big. There's some keys, there's some like guitars going on. Like, it gets pretty aggressive sometimes, like, even though it's a pretty innocuous melody. And then it sort of retreats, and then it's just his voice, and that's it, really. And then a few bits of piano and guitar and stuff. So there's a lot of undulation going on. And it is a dumb, stupid song. But he even says at one point the fact that he's not really much of a storyteller, or he's not very good with words or something. And so I feel like it's almost in the spirit of the song that he picks basically the most cliched romantic couple in the world and then delivers the most cheesy like lines over it as well. That it's kind of like all in keeping with the fact he's like, look, I'm not a wordsmith, but what do you reckon, me and you, eh? Like, it's pretty crude. It's crude and it's a bit silly. And also, what I did like is that the outro, he's kind of like, he says, how about it? And then it just sort of loiters. It sort of hovers there on like 2 chords for a bit. That I was into. I mean, I didn't like the song, but there were bits of it that I can talk about and say, all right, okay, fair enough, Dire Straits.
That's fair enough.
I was going to say, I felt that the first time I listened to it, it felt a bit like not like homework, but I was thinking if I wasn't going to be talking on a podcast about this, I probably would have turned this off by now. Yeah. But actually, kind of by the time I'd finished it, I was like, yeah, I could go for that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's charming, much like the story of sort of Romeo and Juliet. It's just charming, and it's about love, and it's a really silly sort of narrative rock song, and there's something about it that I find a little bit charming, and I think a lot of people probably find quite a lot of comfort in it when they've split up with someone. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
I do like that the drummer. Dom's right about the drummer though. Just sometimes you can hear he's getting antsy, and you just hear this big like like the chorus. Oh dear.
All right. Well, okay. We can park that one up on a balcony somewhere. That's fine.
And I forget the movie song. When you're gonna realize it was just that the time was wrong, Juliet. Come up on different streets, they both were streets of shame, both dirty.
Let's move on to yours, Dom. I'd like to wish you a Merry February before we go into this one. Dom, tell us about your Fantastic Beats track.
Yeah, so in addition to completely getting the wrong end of stick with the podcast theme, I've also gone for an extremely unseasonal selection of, because if you, in for a penny, in for a pound, if I'm going to get one bit wrong, I'm going, I'm going completely out there. So I have gone for Santa's Got a Bag of Soul by the Poets of Rhythm. And I stumbled across this completely by accident because I was looking up a MC/turntablist called Dan, and someone had said to me, he realizes that you realize that he's beat juggling and singing at the and doing the MCing at the same time while he's performing, and I was like, no way. So I went onto YouTube to try and find a video of it, and Daptone had given him like 2 copies of the record and had said, will you do some beat juggling of this Poets of Rhythm track, and will you kind of rap over the top of it explaining what it is when it's coming out. So I was essentially watching the greatest advertisement of all time, not only for the content of the advertisement, but also that I did actually go out and buy the double LP. And yeah, it's just straight from the off. It's just the whole song makes me want to move. It's magical. Like, it's a really simple beat played just fantastically well. Like, the sizzle on the hi-hat is perfect. Like, the rhythm, the tempo of it is absolutely right. Like, any faster it would feel, it wouldn't have the groove. Any slower it would be just too sluggish. And yeah, it sits perfectly with the bass. It's just, every time it comes on shuffle at work, I wonder what people must think of me, which I feel is I feel that's an indicator of a good track to me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Every time.
I had a lot of, when I was listening to this, I had a lot of thoughts of you just like getting quite excited about Christmas and just sort of having this on and just sort of eschewing like every other sort of number one hit and just being like, yeah. I don't know.
In June or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like that with shorts and sunglasses on. Yeah.
Jack, Merry February to you, Jack.
Thank you.
What did you make of this?
Well, I couldn't believe that this was made by a bunch of German blokes in like the 90s, 2000s. Like I listened to it first and then I found that out and I was like, this is ridiculous, because the recreation of that sound from, I don't know what era you'd say, like 60s, 70s, where the microphones are kind of distorting and there's a sense of a studio that's sort of not really fit for this music yet. Like technology's still catching up to the fact that people are playing pretty fucking loud by this point. And it just sounds so good. Like the production is absolutely lush and it's like fit to burst. And there's a couple of bits that I particularly like the intro is great because it comes in with that sort of biscuit tinny snare drum sound, which has got a really nice ring to it. And then you've got this organ in the chorus as well, which has sort of got this vibrato on it. It's almost like atonal because it's so choppy, and you just hear it come in the right ear, and it sort of just sounds like a saw buzzing away. And it's really exciting. And I think the cymbals are crazy as well. Like the drummer goes mental on the cymbals during the chorus, which I always like. The little guitar trills that kind of jump off the bass line sound like little Christmas tree decorations kind of dangling off the groove and stuff. I feel like it should be like a legit alternate Christmas song that should be in quite heavy rotation. Like when people are kind of sick of Mariah and things that are a bit more ploddy and 4/4, just to have like someone screaming like, "Get down, Santa," I think gives Christmas its groove back a bit. So I really enjoyed it. Oh, and the saxophone that comes wailing in at the end is spot on as well, because it only gets about 30 seconds to do its thing, and so it sort of doubles down on the on the energy. So yeah, really enjoyed it. Lizzie, what did you think?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Festive
Again,
fun.
This is now in my Christmas rotation, or my all year round rotation. I really liked the organ in it as well. I felt like the organ was sort of very urgent, kind of pushing you towards Christmas Eve, like, you know, in the kind of way that adverts and shops do. So I really enjoyed the organ. And yeah, the drums the whole way through. I've written down beaty, and I think what I mean by that, Dom articulated, as our drum specialist on this episode, which we fully planned, I think Dom described it much better, but those drums take you all the way through the journey. They don't let up. They feel really joyful and wholesome, and they just drive it along really nicely. I enjoyed the sexualization of Santa. I've written down "make you hot," so that's always good.
There's just not enough of that elsewhere.
No.
There isn't enough of that. It's a cold time of year. He might really need that.
It's like Santa Baby and this, isn't it, really?
Yeah. And I think, towards the end, I was really like, because it's definitely one when you've got it on, you are like, your head's definitely grooving to it. That's sort of like mandatory. And towards the end, when he's kind of just spitballing lyrics a bit more, they definitely don't fit. They definitely don't rhyme. He definitely is just kind of like making it up at the end, just words about like Santa and chimneys and coming and stuff. And it's just, I really liked it. I just laughed at him at the end because I thought like, yeah, like you really lost it there, didn't you? But then also you really found it. So, yeah, strong choice.
Yeah, I thought it's great, the summation about halfway through where he just says, "Funky, funky Christmas time, funky Santa Claus," like in case people weren't quite sure of what was being meshed. He just puts it really succinctly.
Well, yeah, Dom, that was very enjoyable. Great choice.
I'm pleased you enjoyed it. In February.
We did, yeah.
Anytime.
Santa Claus, sure got soul. He's
track. What have you got for us?
Yeah, so my track is by Xenia Rubinos, who is an Afro-Latino musician from Brooklyn. She put out an album called Black Terry Cat, which I think I was just browsing Pitchfork and there was a review of a record and it had a little track player on the review, and then I played it, and within about 10 seconds I wanted to hear the rest of it. I was really transfixed. It's like, so the album as a whole is really stylistically diverse. It's got a bit of like I don't know, jazz, R&B, a bit of grunge in there, a bit of electronica in there, but it's all drawn together by this really sparse, stripped back sound. So like at any one time there's maybe just a voice, drums and bass, and then a few like sample inflections or something. So this track is called Lonely Lover, and it's for the most part just the bass line, just the drums and just a voice. And when it is that stripped back, I think every instrument needs to be absolutely on point, and that's what I feel like's going on here. Like the drums sound so good, like the snare has this wonderful crack to it. It's got like this wicked bass line which is very dry and quite sincere, I think, and her voice has this sort of vintage kind of film on it. It's got this like warmth and a crackly softness to it. Her vocal performance as well is amazing. She does this like, I don't know, this wobbly thing with her voice at one point, well, at several points actually, that just every time it gets me. I just think the bass line is wicked as well. It's got this sort of descending. It's got this descending quality to it, this sort of sagging to it. And I feel like it's a song that, I mean, lyrically, I've been trying to figure out what it's about, but there are points that make me think it's about the struggle of maybe being a mother and maybe feeling like you haven't got your shit together, and then feeling like you've also got to have your shit together for another, like your kid as well, and just really bumbling through the best you can. And that's why that bass line sort of just that's slipping down levels at a time feels like it's so appropriate. So like, oh, and also there's a Miles Davis sample like right at the start of Sketches of Spain, which I feel like is a reference to the fact that she's part Spanish, her grandfather was Spanish, but then there's also the African American element as well. So it's just, I think it's a lovely song from like a really lovely album. So what do you reckon, Dom? What do you reckon?
I really enjoyed it. I think my favourite thing about it was there were just the incredible synergy between the drums and the bass.
Right.
Like one could not make a single step without the other being, you know, completely behind it. And yeah, I felt that was fantastic. Just the way that like when the bass changed, kind of how it was playing, the kick drum would follow it, and yeah, I hadn't noticed until you said how little instrumentation there actually is on the track. Like the fact it is mainly bass, drums, vocals, and then there's kind of occasional noises that come in behind it.
Yeah. But
it doesn't feel lacking at all, which again is just testament to the strength of the few parts it does have.
Yeah, spot on. Lizzie, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I absolutely love her music, and yeah, just the bass. Actually, your song, Dom, as well had a strong old bass. So two strong basses here, not so much Dire Straits. But
no, listen again. It's good bass line.
Yeah, no, the bass at the beginning of this is really nice because there's some of the lyrics are about sort of falling down, and the bass kind of it walks you down into the song at the beginning. It sort of starts off and plateaus, and then it goes do 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 do, and that's kind of falling down into the song. And I always think, okay, now here we are, off we go. And there's sort of spiraling chorus of vocals at some point as well, which again always make you feel like you're falling down. And you know, when you listen to the lyrics of the song, I feel like it is about like losing control and like not being able to be your best even though you need to. So everything in this song kind of falls down, but in the most beautiful way. It's interesting you say about maybe motherhood, because I thought of that as well. And a really great friend of mine who has kids, I think I said one day, like, what is it like to do, she's like an incredible theatre producer. I was like, what is it like to do all of your work and have kids? And she was like, you know what, sometimes the wheels just come off,
right,
and the whole thing. And I just thought that was a great way of describing it, and it really reminded me of this song where she's just saying like, I just have to breathe, I can't do this, I've lost my glasses. Like, oh my god, if you are to take it literally, I don't know, but I love her music, and you know when you're listening to something of hers, you're always getting something that is musically very, very fresh, and as Wikipedia describes it, not easily categorised, which is like the highest form of compliment ever, isn't it?
Yeah.
And absolutely love it, and really recommend anybody to kind of look at the rest of her body of work, because it's just brilliant.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, this album as well, I think what's so good about the album is that different parts of this track are reprised. I mean, the intro to this whole album is like a reprisal of the bass line, but in a different form. There's like a reprisal of the outro later on in the album, and it feels like it's all interconnected and sort of thinking back upon itself. And so it's even enriched by just hearing the other tracks on the album as well. Lovely beats, lovely sounds.
Dom, thank you so much. You yourself have a band. With drums? Where can you listen to your band?
My band is Working Man Noise Unit. We are on Spotify. We're on Bandcamp, which is just workingmannoiseunit.bandcamp.com, and on all major social media.
And a major social media for a major band.
It's true.
I always listen to Working Man Noise Unit when I gotta get to work and I gotta get a project done, or something's gotta happen. I think it's fair to say it revs you right up.
Yeah. I mean, I listen to Dire Straits for that, but that's fine.
Awesome. All right, well, Jack, where can people find out about Fantastic Beats?
You can go to fantasticbeatspodcast.com for our official website, where you can listen to all our episodes as well. We're on Twitter at fantastic_pod. And if you'd like to send us an email and get in touch, perhaps put forward some recommendations of your own, you can email us at hello@fantasticbeatspodcast.com.
Happy days. Dom, thank you. You're a fantastic guest.
Yes.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're very welcome. And we will see you all again next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.